freaking first cut. Golly.
What's going on, YouTube? This is your DFS preview for this week's Zurich Classic, the team event. Very unique strategy that we are going to talk through here momentarily. So make sure to hit the like button. Make sure you are subscribed, and we'll jump into it right now. Rick Gehman here, joined by one Sia Nejad. Sia, welcome.
Happy to be here. I'm going to keep it at that because I was going to go into one and done, but no, I'm just going to keep it at that. Whoops, I already slipped.
We will get to that in just 1 second. Greg DuCharme is here. Greg, DFS preview for the Zurich. Lots to talk about, but first off, you feeling pumped? You feeling strong? You feeling ready to rock and roll?
Yeah, sorry I was a little late. Let's just say I'm ready for the playoffs.
There is a comment that says, so it's a two-parter, I guess. EMR says, sorry, they might be a little late. Greg is late from his workout for Nerf basketball. And then DB hits us with a, what's he lifting? Cotton balls? Which I thought was pretty
yeah,
fun.
it is really funny. I got a question. What's heavier, a ton of cotton balls or a ton of bricks?
So stupid.
I'm sorry, I had to.
Yeah, everyone knows it's a ton of bricks.
It's cotton balls, but the weight is, I'm not going to share.
It's a lot. It's a lot of cotton balls. You're keeping the cotton ball companies in business. Let me do a little bit of housekeeping here. The official fan vote for the one and done. It is live in the description of this video and podcast. So go on, make sure you've got your selection in. Here are the caveats, gentlemen. I want to get your thoughts on this because we were backstage talking about it. And producer Jacob, who is the final say in all of it, said pure chaos. That's what he wants this week. He wants pure chaos. So, Sia, we have to burn both golfers. So you got to have both available. And the payout is only one golfer's share. So this week, that's $1.2 million. That does sound like chaos to me.
It does. I kind of like it, actually. I mean, you know, if it's me, I'm wanting both payouts for both players because I'm at the bottom staring up at everybody else. With that said, I mean, listen, there's a lot of golfers to choose from. I've saved a lot of good golfers to my detriment, but, you know, there's a lot of golfers to go around. So I think it's fine to have to burn two.
The argument was that if we got the payout for both guys, it would basically be a major championship. And I don't think we want the Zurich Classic to be a major championship. And Greg, we think that this probably helps the fans the most. They have the most golfers available to them. You know, the majority of us, not the fans, probably can't play any of the top teams because we would have used one of them at some point.
I feel like in this event, I've thinned out significantly, a lot more than I did at this point last year. But it's such a cool event because when you go team, you don't need both. You don't need two guys that are rock stars. I mean, there's a lot of really good options out here. It's just it gets a little tricky, and you get narrowed in. You get put into a corner a little bit because you want somebody who has a chance to win. But have you used one of them? Like I mean, the Fleetwood Garcia team is one I was looking at. But I used Sergio earlier this year. So there's some challenges, and I think you're going to have to take a guy off the board this week that you don't want to, that you want to save, but you can't because you need to stay in the mix. And look, it's an important week, and it's one where you should be able to get a really nice finishing position, but I think it's going to cost a lot this week.
All right. Well, let's talk about the format. Before we dive into the fantasy side of things, Seal, let's just talk about what the heck is going on. Zurich Classic in the 5th year of it being a team event. So there are 80 teams of 2. That is 160 golfers. They will play 2 rounds of 4 ball. That is where everyone plays their own ball. Lowest score counts for the team, also known as best ball. And they will play 2 rounds of 4 sums, which is alternate shot. So already see it out of the gate. It's going to be different than what we see on a regular basis, obviously.
Yeah, obviously. And I think you're going to see some, you know, incredible scores, particularly on the best ball days. So, and then with alternate shot, you have to consider your weakest link. How weak is that weakest link? Because it's going to really come into play when it comes to alternate shot. But that lends itself to the question: Do you want 2 guys that are great, or obviously ideally that's what you want, but there's only so many teams like that and they're priced accordingly. Or are you going to end up preferring a guy who might be elite with a guy who might be a little erratic? And I think you could make arguments for both.
Yeah, to see his point there, Greg, we've seen teams threaten 59 in the best ball format. We've seen 60s over the years, and then alternate shot, obviously much more difficult. 2 under par, probably a really good score in alternate shot. You might see some teams get to 3 and 4 or 5. I think we saw at some points last year, but it's just completely different dynamic. And we end with the alternate shot. So it's, I like that. They flipped it from a couple of years ago. It's smart to end on alternate shot.
Well, there are arguments for both ways, but it definitely leads to some more volatility. The team has to gel more in alternate shot. You have one guy go out and shoot 63, and that's the worst he can do in best ball, or better ball. So it's an interesting dynamic. Do you want to see birdies coming down the stretch? Do you want to see guys struggling? Do you want to see volatility and chaos? I think this is, well, I don't know. Is this a more chaos? It's chaotic when everybody's just making a ton of birdies. That's chaos too. So I like it this way. But the other way, it definitely leaves Sunday in question.
There's certainly an aspect of luck, Sia, which is, I think, what, when Greg says volatility, this is what I think of. If your team, Morikawa, Hovland, and each of them make 5 birdies in a round, but they make them on the same holes, they're 5 under. If they make them on opposite holes, they are 10 under. There is a bit of luck, quite a bit of it, I think, involved in just kind of how the scoring ends up shaking out.
Yeah, but then it comes down to what's the probability that you have 2 guys on, with whatever pick you have that are going to be more inclined to make birdies on different holes, frankly, that can kind of hold their own and birdie, without help, if you will. So that's going to be what this DFS slate really comes down to, is the team that is going to string together the most birdies. That's the team that's going to give themselves the most opportunity.
In terms of DFS, here's how it looks. And Jacob, can we share my screen just so we can get a feel for this here? So I've created some tools for this, but I've got the stats loaded in as a team. And the way this works, Greg, is every single partner, both individuals are the same price, but you are not going to be able to roster both of them. So if you click Morikawa's name, you're not going to also be able to enter one with Victor Hovland's name. You can't enter that lineup with 2 guys from the same team. And then no matter what happens, they're getting the same number of points. So again, in my example, if Morikawa makes 10 birdies, and they use all 10 of those, and Morikawa only makes 1, it doesn't matter. These teams are getting the same number of points. So you've got to remember that when you're building your lineups.
Yes, you're drafting 6 teams. You'll click on an individual, but you're drafting 6 teams, and I think that's the best way to do it. I think there may have been a time when they were different price. Some of them are different price.
That might have been. There was something like that. It was either like a Ryder Cup or a President's Cup contest or something where I remember being like, the strategy is grab 2 teams. I cannot remember exactly what it was, but you're right. There was something like that.
So this is the way to do it for this event. It makes the most sense. And you're only as strong as your weakest link, as Sia said. But it's still interesting to consider the individuals on your team, because you can have, there are some really mismatched teams here. And it affects the price. So you're looking for a balanced team, or you're looking for a team with a heavy hitter and maybe a guy that's a little bit less. It becomes a interesting strategy point.
Well, we're going to talk about all those little things. We're going to go tier by tier through this pricing. But first, we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our partners.
The United States is at war.
We know what we have to face, and we are ready to face it.
I'm fighting to make women equal.
The president's to get his wife under control.
It's time all these little chocolate girls know that their lives matter too. Sometimes you have to forget politics, do the right thing, and trust the rest.
And we're back. The $10,000 range, Sia. And again, these stats that you're looking at, RickRunGood.com, and they're the combined stats. I can go do the individual stats, but these are for each team as well. Colin Morikawa, Victor Hovland, the favorites, they're 10,700. Xander Schauffele and Patrick Cantlay, they're 10,400. Our defending champions, Cam Smith and Mark Leishman, are 10-2. And Billy Horschel, along with Sam Burns, round out the $10,000 tier. Sia, how do you start to assess the top of the board?
It's, again, when we talk about this elite range, it's so hard to distinguish one from the other. Obviously, you look at this and your eyes pop when you see Colin Morikawa and Victor Hovland. I mean, it's just one of those things where you're like, wow, I can't believe those two guys are paired together. And frankly, their cost, it's not prohibitive. You know, I've built a couple lineups. You can absolutely play that squad and still have plenty of money left over to build out a reasonably balanced lineup with some stars up top. So I guess I'll say I like that the most. I mean, the short game can kind of get in the way. And I think, you know, you look at Cameron Smith and Mark Leishman, and it's almost like the sort of the opposite of that, at least when it comes to the short game. I got to tell you, though, the team that jumps out at me that I don't want to get too far in the weeds with ownership here, but the team that jumps out at me that probably will be the least owned of these four is that $10,000 one, Billy Horschel and Sam Burns. And I don't want to, I mean, we'll go down narrative street later, but I do think there's something to be said for Billy Horschel and Sam Burns being together and having a certain dynamic about them that might be greater than the dynamic of some of these other guys in terms of like just the competitive atmosphere hole to hole. We know that about Billy Horschel. I'm willing to assume that with Horschel, with Burns. I like that team quite a bit. So while I think Victor Hovland and Colin Morikawa is certainly the most talented team, and I can certainly make arguments for the other two in this elite range, I'm starting to lean towards Billy and Sam.
Before last year for the Burns Horschel team, which does start to, you have to at some point, Greg, consider experience. Victor and Colin, obviously incredibly talented. It's their first time playing this format together. How much does that factor into your decision making?
It factors in, absolutely. Now, I do think there are a number of cases of first-time teams having success. You can look to Mark Leishman and Cam Smith just last year. It was Mark Leishman's first time playing in this event as a team, and he won. So I think you can win this event without having played together a lot. But for some of the, you know, the biggest concern with Morikawa and Hovland, and they both upgraded big time from their partners last year. Morikawa played with Wolf last year, who was really struggling, and they missed the cut as a result. And it really showed in the alternate shot. And Victor Hovland played with Christopher Ventura last year, and they did all right. But it was a tied 25th finish for them ultimately. So they have both really upgraded, and their partner is playing well right now, and they're playing well right now, and it's a very scary team. But I do think the Horschel Burns team is the most interesting. I mean, you look at what Billy Horschel has done this year, and it's phenomenal. You look at his record in this event, and it's phenomenal. He won it as an individual. He came and tied fourth last year with Sam Burns. So I think this is a really formidable team. And the advantage that they have over Morikawa and Hovland, in my opinion, is they're better putters. I mean, Sam Burns has gained strokes in his last 4 events on the greens. He's been a great putter for his whole career. And Billy Horschel, he's gained in his last 3 and 4 out of the last 5. He's having a really nice putting year too. So those two jump off the page to me, and I love the savings as well.
So the team of Horschel and Burns, they are the best putting team in the $10,000 range, gaining nearly half a stroke per round over the last 24. Billy Horschel, the only golfer who has won this as an individual and as a member of the team. Cam Smith has won it twice as part of a team, both those guys in the $10,000 range. Let's circle back up to the top here. Xander Schauffele, Patrick Cantlay, Sia. This to me is kind of the safest team. They're both very well-rounded. They're one of the most well-rounded elite teams on the board. They didn't play particularly well. I think it was in round 2 last year, the alternate shot. I believe they were actually over par, still finished T11. It feels like they're the safest team.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's definitely the safest team. And I don't have a problem playing them. Again, when you're in this range, you kind of have to, pick and choose and drop teams that you would otherwise play. So for me, I think honestly, now that I think about it, I think I like them better than the top team there, than Colin and Hovland. So for me, if I'm ranking them, which you didn't ask for, but I would go Billy Horschel, Sam Burns, and then I'd go Xander and Patrick Cantlay.
So Greg, are we just kind of, the Aussies are kind of in an awkward spot here. The defending champions, Cam Smith, did not play well last week. You can attribute whatever percentage of that you want to the Masters hangover. We like the price on Horschel Burns. We see the talent at the top. Is the Smith-Leishman group the overlooked group?
Well, they certainly sound like it right now.
No,
I have some concerns with Mark Leishman, and maybe they're not fair, but he lost nearly 6.5 shots in the Masters on the greens. And now before that, and before the match play, he was putting great for a long time. And so the greens at Augusta National and the greens here in Louisiana are very different. And maybe that creates a little advantage for Mark Leishman. I don't have a problem with playing these two. I'm not worried about Cam Smith, especially on this golf course. It's not very penal off the tee. You can kind of hit it anywhere you want. They have a gel together that is that's strong. And I think Mark Leishman's a better putter than his last two starts show. Yeah. And then Cam Smith, I believe, is the best putter in the game. So that's a really strong team that definitely deserves some spots. And I think their price is really fair. So, I almost like the bottom two teams in this range more than the top two teams in this range. Although everybody is really strong, and I wouldn't say don't play any of these four teams. I think they're all worth playing. My personal preference, I might go backwards. I might go from 10 flat up as my ranking 1 through 4.
Okay, well, let's keep on going down to the $9,000 range here. It's Scotty Scheffler and Ryan Palmer at 9,700. Shane Lowry, Ian Poulter, 95. Sergio Garcia, Tommy Fleetwood, 94. Joaquin Niemann and Mito Pereira, 9,200. Then we finish it off with Max Homa and Taylor Gooch, 91. And Bubba Watson alongside Harold Varner III at an even $9,000. Sia Nejad, what do you like?
So first of all, I think you can start in this range if you want to, if you just want to be different, because pricing's pretty soft as far as I can tell in the limited lineups I've done. But with that said, I think people will definitely start with somebody in that 10K range, which I think is totally fine. I'm just suggesting that there's plenty of talent down here that could be really contending on Sunday afternoon, obviously. I think the 2 or 3 teams I like the most are toward the bottom. Sergio and Tommy Fleetwood, I like quite a bit. Sergio's game's been kind of, we use the word variance a lot, and he's been erratic, especially on approach, which is kind of mysterious. He flashed on approach last time out. What's interesting, though, is that his putter, he's been okay with the putter over the last 5-6 tournaments, gaining in at least 3 of those. So I think Sergio and Fleetwood, I think their game is maybe kind of in a really good place right now, but we're just not quite sure about them. So I think it's an interesting time to play them. The other 2 teams I like, Niemann and Pereira, I think they're going to be pretty popular, but that's probably for pretty good reason. I think they're good course fits here. And then Max Homa and Taylor Gooch, I think that's a pretty good price for that team. And that's a team I'm probably going to be playing in a lot of my lineups.
Yeah, the Sergio Fleetwood team is fairly exciting. They finished runner-up together a couple of years ago. A lot of international experience between the two. Fleetwood's playing the best he has probably since the start of 2020, and Sergio is going through a little bit of an approach slump, but hopefully has kind of swung his way out of that. Greg, how do you begin to assess this $9,000 range?
I love the Garcia Fleetwood lineup. And again, that would be my one and done team if I hadn't played Sergio Garcia already. So I love that team. And I think Sergio maybe found something at the Masters. You mentioned that approach play slump, but he gained 6.8 strokes at the Masters.
Yeah.
And his DNA as a player is a lot better than the 5 straight events where he lost strokes approaching the green before the Masters. But maybe he found something in his iron play the way Patrick Cantlay did. Patrick Cantlay was in an iron play slump, gained strokes at the Masters, and then led the field the very next week, last week at the RBC Heritage. So that could be an interesting thing. Sergio was putting really well heading into the match play. I think that's a really good thing. And Tommy Fleetwood, last week on this show, I was very high on him because I feel like Tommy Fleetwood is becoming to the Tommy Fleetwood of old. And I love the recent finishes, and he's a formidable player. And I think he's ready this year to contend in majors again. And this event seems to be a place he is very happy. He really enjoys this. And I expect those two to have a really nice duel. But I don't want to go without mentioning Scotty Scheffler and Ryan Palmer. Ryan Palmer's like, I mean, he's like the John Calipari of recruiting in golf. And it's really amazing what he's done. He had Jordan Spieth for 2 years. He had John Rahm for 2 years. Now he's got Scotty Scheffler. I guess John Rahm didn't do enough to keep the teammate. I don't know how Ryan Palmer's created this, but it works. It absolutely works. And although his play has been poor, I think he would admit that it's been poor. I don't think he's useless by any means. And when you play with the Scotty Scheffler, that could really up your energy levels.
3 trips to the Zurich as a member of a team for Ryan Palmer. He's missed 1 cut, but a 4th place finish, a victory, and a 7th place finish in his other 3 results. It is actually not Colin and Victor, not Cam and Mark, but over the last 24 rounds, the best combined team, Shane Lowry and Ian Poulter. 1.41 strokes gained per round. A lot of that admittedly coming from Shane Lowry's run here, Sia, but you combine that with Poulter, who we know can get a hot putter, can make a lot of noise in some of these different types of formats. Where does Lowry and Poulter rank on your list?
Actually, I like them as well. I definitely think you can start your build there. Obviously, we know what Shane Lowry's done, but Poulter hasn't been that bad. We know he's probably going to be pretty good in this type of format, but the approach play, while it's been erratic, it's been okay. It's like a little hot and cold. The short game's been pretty good, and that's certainly going to come into play here. So I don't mind this team at all. I think it's really sneaky.
What else in this $9,000 range, Sia? Anybody you're worried about? Anybody you wouldn't consider playing?
You know, I don't think, I mean, famous last words. I probably said this 2 weeks ago too. I don't think I'm going to play Team Scotty Scheffler, even though, vice president of the Ryan Palmer fan club as well. I just don't think I'm going to get there with Ryan Palmer. They're probably going to do fine. I just like other teams. Bubba Watson and Harold Varner, I think, is really interesting. I don't mind that team, but again, I don't think I'm going to play them because there's only so many I can like in this 9K range. And the 3 teams I like the best are probably the 3 teams above Bubba and HV3.
Final word, Greg, on the $9,000 range. Anybody else you want to talk about?
Oh, sorry.
There we go.
I feel like we've talked about everybody in this range, but just to add on the Bubba and HV3 team, HV3, who's a great ball striker, has been putting really well of late. And I really like that aspect. You combine that with Bubba's course history, the fact that you can kind of hit it anywhere off the tee around here. And it could be really advantageous for a Bubba Watson. He won here as an individual back in 2011. And he got his 1 team appearance here. He's got a T8. So I really like Bubba here as well, too. I mean, this probably not quite a Bubba course, but I think that could be a formidable team. I'm kind of with Sia, where I like the Garcia Fleetwood team so much. It's hard to leave Scotty Scheffler off. And I think Lowry and Poulter is a little interesting to me. I'm a little worried about Shane Lowry with his ball striking performance on Sunday. I'm wondering if something happened there that's going to last, or if that was just a bad day. So I still kind of sit on the fence on that, and it probably pushes me away from that team. But yeah, I don't think you should sleep on Watson and Varner.
All right, well, let's continue on into the $8,000 range and below. But first, we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our partners. And we're back. Sizable $8,000 range here, so I'm just going to try to go through them quickly. The top is Zalatoris and Riley, Willett Henhatton, Sung J M, Benyon, Graham McDowell, Seamus Power. The middle is Keegan Bradley and Brendan Steele, along with Patton Kazire and JT Poston. Then we round it out with Sepp Straka, along with Grayson Sigg, Brandon Todd, and Chris Kirk, Henrik Stenson and Justin Rose. Finally, with Hadwin, Svensson, they're together. Martin Laird, Robert McIntyre. That's the $8,000 range. Sia, what do you see?
This is a really tough range because there's not a lot of teams I'm really in love with. So I think whatever team you invest in here, you're just going to have to, you're taking some chances. I mean, that's just the bottom line. That the security that you have in the 9K range and above is just not there here. The first team I had my eyes on was Danny Willett and Terrell Hatton. You know, Willett's game's been, he's flashed here and there, like round by round, but overall, the strokes gain metrics, I think particularly on approach, it's been pretty bad. And so that worries me a little bit. Like, as we can see here watching on YouTube, there's not a lot he's doing well other than, you know, the short game has been pretty good. With all of that said, I think Willett and Hatton are pretty sneaky. And as far as this 8K range goes, that's a team I'm willing to take a chance on. The other team I'm willing to take a chance on is, and this is a guy who's flashed a little bit lately and might be an okay course fit, Graham McDowell and Seamus Power. Obviously, Graham McDowell's stats aren't going to flash to anybody. Well, whether you're looking at tee to green, ball striking, it's just none of it is great. But I think he can actually be successful on this course. And we know Seamus Power has been really good as of late in terms of just the ball striking, and the tee to green's been pretty good. That's a team I like. The only other team I would even consider, and I'm not really there yet with them, is Brendan Todd and Chris Kirk.
The McDowell Power group has my attention. McDowell's been probably fine or less than fine, but he's never going to get you in trouble off the tee. And he's got 3 straight top 25s at this event. Seamus Power has 2 top 10s in his last 3 trips. They're both very good team players. Now they get to team up and kind of put their powers together, pun intended. Greg, how do you start to break down the $8,000 range?
Well, this is where we have that situation I talked about earlier in the show, where you have a star and a not star, at least yet. And that's Will Zalatoris and Davis Riley.
Nice. Yeah. Okay.
Right. I mean, they're very interesting to me. Is playing on a team going to really inspire Davis Riley, who has we saw the talent at the Valspar. I mean, he's a phenomenal player. He hasn't been great on the PGA Tour after, and he wasn't great before. He's been very inconsistent. You see the ups and downs on the greens. So it gives me a little worry, but I wonder if Will Zalatoris can carry that team. So they are interesting to me, but they're not my favorite play. My 2 favorite plays, Ben An and Sung Jae Im. Yeah. And the reason I like that, Ben An has been playing Korn Ferry Tour events, but he came and tied second at the Veritex Bank Championship last week. And I think that's really valuable. He won not long ago on the Korn Ferry Tour back in February. And I think confidence, it doesn't matter where it comes from. We've seen confidence be built at an event like this, which you may think doesn't really mean that much to players, but it means a lot to their game. And playing in a Korn Ferry Tour event, while it may be, you feel like you've taken a step down, when you can step up and put some good rounds together and go shoot 62 like Ben An did last week, you're feeling good about your game. So I like that. And I think Sung Jae Im is a really strong partner for him as well, who's been playing great golf, seems to have found something again with the ball striking. And then the other team that I really like is Brendan Todd and Chris Kirk. Brendan Todd is an elite putter, as we know. He played well at the Valero. He played well at the RBC last week in his last 2 starts. I love what he does on the greens. And you combine that with Chris Kirk. And you click on his name on RickRunGood.com, and it is amazing how well this guy's been hitting the ball. I mean, the whole upper left column is, the upper left 3 columns are green. I mean, that looks really nice for a Chris Kirk. And at 8,200, I think that's a fairly priced team. So those would be my 2 favorites, but I may take a chance on Zalatoris and Riley.
Countless Bulldogs in this range here. Todd, Kirk, George Bulldog, Sepp Straka, Grayson Sigg. We've got Team No Putt, the ultimate Team No Putt of Keegan Bradley and Brendan Steele. Got a couple of, let's see. Oh, where did Davis Riley go to school?
Alabama.
Okay. I knew it was like SEC, right? That's an SEC school.
Yeah. Yeah. He's Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. Got it. Stenson and Rose going back out there for another go at it. That did not go well for them. I think it was last year.
No, and it usually does go well when they pair up. I don't feel like their games are in great shape.
What else is here? What about the Adams? Hadwin and Svensson, couple of Canadian Adams. Anybody? Can I tell you those?
I don't mind it.
Yeah, I like it quite a bit. I mean, Svensson has been a little hot and cold, but he has ability. I really like that team. I mean, any team Adam Hadwin's on, I'm in for.
Of course. Just kind of looking through here. It's interesting.
I mean, look at what Adam Hadwin has done this year is amazing.
Yeah.
It happened. Like what I saw when my fandom of Adam Hadwin came to fruition, it happened a year late. It was 1 year later it happened. And that's okay. But I think that, to me, in my eyes, there's a real growth with him. It took longer than I expected, a lot longer than I expected, but it's here. Makes me feel good about my analysis. I just wish it was, last year and this year.
For sure. Unbelievable iron play from him. Already a good putter. Comfy little pairing with Svensson. We'll see how it goes. $7,000 range. I'm not going to read them all, see. There's a ton of names here. And this is where I think things start to drop off. There's a couple of teams I've got my eye on, but it starts with a couple of South Africans, Charles Schwartzel, Christian Bezeno, goes all the way down to Tom Hoagie and Paul Barjon, Nick Watney and Charlie Hoffman, Alex Smalley, Hayden Buckley. They're the bottom of the 7K range. So what do you see here?
Yeah, towards the top, I'll tell you, Streb and Merritt, I think, is really interesting because I don't think they're going to be super popular. Those are just not names that people are going to gravitate to. And they've both been playing really well. I mean, especially Streb, when you look at his ball striking, particularly on approach, Streb has been really, really good. And Troy Merritt has been finding a way a lot lately. So I think that's just kind of an under the radar team that you can take a look at as you pull the stats up for Streb. And I want to say, I looked at these earlier today, but look at the approach stats are pretty great. The short game, could use some work, but overall the ball striking is great.
The short game could use some work is the title of my autobiography. Don't worry about that. That's quite common. Okay. So Streb and who's his partner here?
Streb is with Troy Merritt.
Okay. Got it. Sorry.
So I like those guys kind of as a sneaky play. I think another potentially sneaky play, or maybe just a lesser owned play, I could be wrong about that, is Maverick McNeely and Joseph Bramlett. We saw what Maverick McNeely did on Sunday at the RBC Heritage, and I don't want to just relegate my analysis to how he popped. I believe it was 7 under yesterday. But Bramlett can flash here and there, and we know Maverick McNeely is a great golfer. I think at 7,700, you're getting some value with some upside with this team. I think maybe one other team or maybe two other teams.
Real quick here on Bram, The one thing that he has is an elite skill set, which is bombing it, right? He is just going to absolutely bomb. He's like 6th on tour in driving distance. He moves it in an unbelievable way. I don't know. Sometimes I think that having one elite skill set like that in kind of a team event or some of these wonky events, it's fairly valuable. And then McNeely, I just think, is awesome.
Fair enough. And so the other two teams I think I should mention, Brian Stewart and Russell Knox. Stewart, we know, has had success on this course, but I also think they're, decent course fits here. I think it's a pretty good team at 7,500. And then the last one, another kind of sneakier play. And this is one that could absolutely crash and burn, but these guys can really pop. And I think that's what you're looking for here, especially at 7,400. Aaron Rye and David Lipsky. Rick, I remember you were on the Lipsky train some time ago. And if memory serves, it was Jacob who was on the Aaron Rye train a long time ago as a choice for his one and done last year. But we know these guys have really flashed as of recently. And we've seen it in the last few tournaments where we see some of that upside. And I think that's what we have here at 7,400.
Yeah, Jacob used Aaron Rye at some point in the one and done, which
that's right.
Is always exciting. Okay, Greg, huge, massive $7,000 range. Where are you targeting?
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly hard to sort through. I'm interested in the Taylor Moore, Matthew Neesmith team.
Yeah,
I think Taylor Moore, although he hasn't been playing great, has some ability to pop. I really like what Matthew Neesmith brings to the table with his iron play and his recent form. I think that's quite interesting. Noren has been playing such good golf lately. He's interesting with Norlander. And Brown and Kisner have my interest as well. Kevin Kisner.
What's Brown been up to? I'll pull that up.
Nothing.
Yeah, okay.
Nothing. But I just wonder if I mean, look, he's a longtime PGA Tour player, and there are some events he's done well here in the past. And I wonder if he and Kiz can get a little thing going here and get something together as a duo. So I like the McNeely Bramlett team as well. I don't mind a Wyndham Clark and a Cameron Tringale. Wyndham Clark is erratic. He bombs it kind of like Bramlett. And Cameron Tringale is a little more steady. I think they could be interesting. So look, there's a lot of names I mentioned there. I don't really love any of them. I'm going to have to play some of them. But I think this is where you can add a little volatility into your lineup and get match some skill sets. And you're looking for, at least I'm looking for the ability to really pop more so than safety. But I don't mind having a safe guy and a really volatile guy. So this is kind of a crazy range as well.
The $7,000 range, believe it or not, is home to 2 of the 4 worst teams over the last 24 rounds. So objectively, kind of the most mispriced teams in the wrong way. Nick Watney and Charlie Hoffman are $7,000. They are losing a stroke a round combined over the last 24. Brandon Grace, Garrett Higo, the 4th worst, losing nearly 9/10 of a stroke per round at 7,300. So considering how weird golf is, one of those 2 teams probably ends up winning this thing.
Yeah. I looked at the Grace and Higo team and I was like, ooh, that could be a good team. Just on the eye, and you click on it. It's like, wow, Garrett Higo, what is going on?
What happened?
Yeah.
Right?
They've really struggled.
So maybe getting a team together allows you to pop. I hate going on that, like the maybe hypothetical situation.
It's like you've been so bad that maybe a format change can't get any worse.
Right.
Like, that's a tough argument.
Like maybe, I don't know, maybe there's a little more pressure. And hey, Garrick I'm just making this up, but maybe he's struggling after winning because he's complacent. And now all of a sudden you bring on Brandon Grace, who I'm sure Garrick Higo looks up to, and he says, okay, I want to play really well for Brandon. I don't want to let this, I don't want to play like I've been playing. And he figures something out. And sometimes a team element can inspire that, but it just feels like it's not fun playing that strategy. So I see a little bit of a light there, but I hate it.
I see the light and I hate it. $6,000 range at the top. Patrick Rogers, Brandon Wu, Richie Warinsky, Peter Uihlein made a deep run last year, top 5. Scott Piercy, Sean O'Hare. Then the min-priced guys in the 160-man team event. Oh boy. Scott Gucheski. How does he pronounce it? Do we know?
I think it's Gucheski.
And DA Points, they're together. Bill and Jay Haas are together. How about that little Papa Bear, Baby Bear action going on? 6,100, Tommy Gainey, Robert Garrigus. We are deep, my friends. See ya. How deep would you like to go?
I do want to point out that at the Valero, Gucheski, I should say, I think that's how you pronounce it. He gained over 2 strokes ball striking and 3.82 on approach. I mean, for whatever that's worth. So here's the thing. This range is probably a range you want to stay away from. Keep in mind, it's top 33. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's top 33 in ties that will advance out of the 80 teams. I just don't think you're going to see a lot from this 6K range. And if you do, I think it's going to be really, really random. It's hard for me to narrow down a couple teams, but I'll pick out a couple. I think Patrick Rogers and Brandon Wu have a shot to make the cut and score some points. Jim Herman and Vaughn Taylor, I'm kind of a, that's 6,400. It's just sometimes when Jim Herman and Vaughn Taylor, them playing well at the same time is extremely unlikely. But again, if for whatever reason you have to dip down into that range, I get it. I wanted to justify Adam Long and Bo Hoag, but I couldn't because Bo Hoag just really, he flashed a little bit last year, but he just hasn't done anything lately to make me think he can make the cut here. I can't go with Lebiota and Chase Seifert. There's just not much for me to choose from down here.
I mean, there's 30 teams, 25, 30 teams in the $6,000 range. 6 of them combined are gaining strokes to the field. 6. Every other team in the $6,000 range is losing strokes to the field. And it makes sense, Greg. I mean, we've got a big field. It's 160. So instead of like the 132 that we get or the 140, it's 160. So you're gonna get some guys here, and we've got some guys in the 6K range we got to figure out.
Yeah, it's not a fun range to try to sort through. But hey, look, in the sea of red that you're seeing on the screen on YouTube here, there's opportunity. So I like I like Rodgers and Wu. I think that's a fair team. I'd play them, and I'd be 53% confident. So I like that team. And there's one other team that catches my eye, and it's Mark Hubbard and Ryan Brehm.
Yeah.
And Mark Hubbard has been playing some Korn Ferry Tour events. He has 3 straight top 12s.
Yeah.
And again, that can be a sign of confidence. Maybe you're not winning these events. You're not right. But in order to finish tied 12th at the Veritex Bank, you got to shoot really low rounds. I mean, the scores at that event were crazy. We're at like 19 under par through 3 rounds. So to keep up to some degree means you're hitting some good shots. And then Ryan Brehm is just extremely long. He won the Puerto Rico Open, which is great. And he has only a tied 66 cent. He's missed 3 of his last 4 cuts after that, but he bombs it. And so maybe leaning a little bit on a unique skill set could be an avenue. Beyond that, there's not much I like.
I will say that Richie Werenski hasn't been as bad as people think. Peter Uihlein's been pretty good, both in his Korn Ferry events and his PGA Tour events in terms of making the cut. But I think that team is, they're not formidable. But if you're looking for a team, because you have to dip down there to make the cut of the 6K range, I definitely think that's a team. And they're priced accordingly. I think that's one of the teams that likely makes it out of the 6K range.
Yeah, Uihlein finished runner-up a couple weeks ago on the Korn Ferry Tour. He's made 5 straight cuts across both circuits. He's playing well. I mean, just compared to the other teams, I think objectively, Werenski and Uihlein are playing better than most. I think Hubbard and Brehm, and I think even, Sia kind of shrugged off Adam Long and Bo Hogan. I get it, but I honestly think you could do a lot worse. I think you could do Kyle Stanley and Camilo Villegas are objectively the worst team in this field.
Ouch. And by the way, for the record, Rick, it was, you're right. It was Richie Werenski. He's been doing the PGA Tour. It was Peter Uihlein. I think I might have mixed those two guys up, but it was Peter Uihlein who's been playing some Korn Ferry and some PGA Tour events. But ouch on Kyle Stanley. Uncalled for, sir.
I got to tell you a quick Peter Uihlein story. I can't believe he's down in. Yeah.
Sweet.
I can't believe we're down in this range talking about these guys. It's like I had a chance to play 9 holes with Peter Uihlein at Medalist. He just joined us on the first tee, and he is so good. He is I played a great 9 holes of golf, and on the first 9 at Medalist, I shot 37 in 20-mile-an-hour winds, and he's messing around and shoots 32. And it looked so easy. There's no effort or thought about the golf. It's amazing to watch. He's hitting a 5-iron from 230, and it's like Scotty Scheffler said, it's just a 5-iron. And it's amazing that you get down into this range and you look at these guys and say they're the worst team. And it's like they're bad. They are so good. And Peter Uihlein can't even keep a regular PGA Tour card. He's unbelievable to watch hit a golf ball.
Describe how Peter Uihlein. So Peter Uihlein shows up at Medalist. Now he's obviously not Tiger Woods, where he shows up and everyone's like, okay, obviously that's Tiger. Does he have to be like, hey, I'm Peter Uihlein. Here's my tour card. I'm just I can go out.
No.
How does that work?
No, he's a member. So those guys there's some kind of membership deal where they, I think they don't have to pay initiation fees, and they're on a 1-year deal and they pay dues. I believe. I hope I'm not giving away club secrets, but I'm pretty sure that's the way that it works. And they can kind of come and go as they please. But for Peter, everybody knows everybody's name. It's not like, oh, there's Peter Uihlein. Who are you? I need to see a PGA Tour credential. And it's a different kind of feel there. Everybody knows everybody.
So did you know he was coming, or did he just show up on the first tee and you're like, oh, hey, what's up, Peter?
Well, I know he's on property. I didn't know he was coming over to the first tee. You know, we're going out to play. I played like every day. I had this great job. I was director of player services. So I was a marshal. You drive around. So there's a slow group out there and somebody wants to find a place to go. It's, hey, why don't you jump over to 13 and then you can play, you know, this loop and kind of keep everybody moving. That was my job. But I got done at 4:00 every day. So I worked from like 9 to 4 or something, 8 to 4. I think it was 8 to 4 every day. And I got done with work. Maybe at 3:45, I'd be down in the cart barn, getting changed, clock out, go. I'm on the first tee at 4:10 every day. It was awesome.
Hey, Tiger, pick it up. Peter Uline's coming through.
Yeah.
Is that what you had to say?
Rick, I was going to say, I'm curious, like, Greg, did you also have to tell like slow groups to speed it up? Because you don't strike, and this is not a criticism, you don't strike me as super confrontational, like somebody's giving you pushback. How do you handle that?
No, that's always a fun experience. I'm not confrontational. And look, these are people, there are tour players there that we all know, but the guys that are there we don't know are, you know, important. They're really important, established, extremely successful people. And, you know, they're out there with guests who knows who they are. And I'm not going to tell them to speed it up. I may say, hey, guys, if, you know, there's a couple groups waiting behind you, if you, in a very courteous way, if you could pick it up a little bit, or maybe we could let somebody play through. But for the most part, if somebody complained to me today, that group, they're playing really slow, I would do a drive-by. I'd say, hey, how you do? I'd talk to him for a second, and I would just say, can I get you anything? And then drive away. And then the group thinks that I talked to them. And
and at least the group that's slow knows that you're there. Like, okay, maybe, hey, I'll pay attention.
And just for the pace of play police out here, this is not slow. Like the slow groups are playing in 4 hours, and people are complaining about it. You know, they expect to play fast, but for the most part, it's either so busy there's nothing I can do, and there's nowhere to go, and it's just slow on like a Saturday in the middle of March. And then the other option is it's not that slow, and everybody's willing to move around. Nobody's set on playing 1 through 18. So you just move them over, find a little loop. All right, they're going to, and you get a game plan together. So there was no confrontation. There was not one confrontational moment that I had in my 1 year doing that job.
Well, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. We're going to find some confrontational moments here because I think Sia is going to reveal his narrative. Is it a lineup of the week, or are these just targets of the week?
So it's just targets. I mean, I actually made a lineup with this narrative, but when the options are plentiful, I just give like however many options there are out there. Actually, I'm sure there are more with this narrative, but sometimes it's a lineup. Sometimes it's just a handful of names or teams in this case.
Okay, so team event, 80 groups of 2. What narrative? And we're in New Orleans. Maybe that's part. What narrative are we going with this week?
Well, team event indeed, pairs of 2. And I'm sure you all remember where you were. I know I'll never forget where I was when Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck announced that they were getting back together. I think that was just this last week. Huge moment. Rick, right?
Together.
Oh, you didn't know that? Wow. Talk to Mina. I'm sure she knows.
I'm not even sure I knew they were not together. No, I knew because I knew Jennifer Lopez was with Alex Rodriguez.
Yes.
That's over, I guess. And I guess now she's back with Ben.
She is back with Ben. It's big news. And, you know, everybody refers to them. I try to be topical here, right? Everybody refers to them as Benifer. I got to admit, I got this idea off Twitter. Somebody sort of fed me this idea, and then I came up with the teams. But it is topical. Benifer is what they're referred to. So I came up with some fun names for some teams. You know, you got to combine the first names, and it kind of rolls off the tongue, that kind of thing. So should I start? I got 9 names here.
Yeah, fire. Give us like 3 so that we can like ease into this, and we can figure, and like I can figure out what's going on.
Okay, because I'm starting from the top down. So, and it ends in the 7,000 flat range. Okay. Ian Poulter and Shane Lowry. That of course is Cheyenne. Kind of cool. Sergio Garcia, Tommy Fleetwood, Turgio, huh? Pretty solid. That's a Phil Collins reference for you guys that
Okay.
are older than Greg and Rick.
I am open to here on these head.
Greg, what season is it?
Spring.
Wrong. It is tax season. Max Homa and Taylor Gooch. Tax. Short and sweet. That's 3. You
I
wanna
like
switch to
team
some
tax. I like that.
How about okay, keep going, I guess.
Well, right below them, of course, is Bubba and Harold. And you got to go with Hubba right there.
Yeah,
We got Graham McDowell and Seamus Power. I kind of like this one. Gramus. Kind of rolls off the tongue. You got that hard consonant in the beginning. Wyndon Clark and Cameron Tringale. Camden. Kind of like that. Rolls off the tongue. It's a mostly a girl's name. I think it's kind of one of those trendy names that are coming out right now for the young ones. Russell Knox and Brian Stewart. Brussel. Who doesn't like Brussel? Aaron Rye and David Lipsky. Darren. David and Aaron. Darren. And then we do have one more. And this one actually pays homage to our esteemed producer. And I'm not sure if any of you or Jacob can figure this one out.
It pays homage to Jacob?
It pays homage to Jacob. Oh.
He's on.
I got it. And it's totally not because you told me before we started this show up. It's Hayden Buckley and Alex Smalley. That's Hallex right there.
Yes.
That's her last name.
Hallex. How about that? So those are the 9. Wow. Cheyenne, Turgio, Tax, Hubba, Gramus, Camden, Brussel, Darren, and of course, Team Hallex.
All right.
Can I get
we've hit rock bottom here.
Can I get Hayden Buckley and Alex Smalley's money for one and done this week too? On top of my other pick?
I dare you.
Yeah, you can have it. Okay. So let me hold on. Jacob, there's a comment here. Let me clear up some one and done stuff. I'm looking for the comment. Gosh, there's a lot of comments. I guess that's a good problem to have. Here's what's happening. You're burning both players. That's the rules. Yep. Someone was like, oh, if the rules change, there are no rules. We're making them up as we go along. We're burning 2 golfers. We're getting one amount of money. The top prize is 1.2 million. That's what you can earn. You got to burn both. So the fans cannot choose Scotty Scheffler and Ryan Palmer because, Jacob, they have used, correct, Scotty at the match play.
Correct. Yep. That's exactly right. So you gotta start running down and figure it out. I had some names already I had to eliminate because you're sitting there and you're like, oh darn, I did take Adam Hadwin earlier this year.
The other really hard thing is like you go Morikawa and Hovland. The best you can do for Morikawa and Hovland is $600,000.
Yeah, that's why you can't burn them, right?
I mean, you're losing 2 guys, so that's a tough burn.
Their strategy.
It's actually harder for the fans than it is for us. Like, I'm just not going to be able to play anybody at the top anyway. The fans actually have a decision to make.
Right. But it benefits them at the same time.
They also just vote.
They have a lot of options.
They just have a voting share in all of this.
Yeah, they got to share.
1 out of a couple hundred or whatever it ends up being. It's like, that's your vote. Good luck.
Yeah. And in the works, we'll figure out how to make the fan vote, an NFT or whatever the heck it is.
Nice. Yeah.
We'll get in on that money grab.
I think we missed out on it, honestly. That thing's like NFTs they're like, are they still a thing?
I have no idea, actually.
No comment. So. We're going to get the bots in the chat.
Yeah, don't tweet about NFTs. It's outrageous the amount of like DMs and like replies and stuff that you get from all the bots. Gentlemen, team event, very unique because we're going foursomes, 4-ball, etc., etc. Any final thoughts before we get out of town?
We got a question in the chat. Bradley and Steele team no putt worries me. It worries me in this event.
I think those 2 are flying too close to the sun, not being able to putt.
I mean, it's both of them. They're both great ball strikers and both not great putters.
Yeah, I love those guys, but not together. Like, that seems so dangerous here.
This is the opposite of ham and egg, so it worries me a little bit.
What is the opposite of ham and egg? Spam and...
That's up to Sia. Maybe he can come up with something.
I got nothing. The opposite of ham and eggs. Waffles.
All right. Make sure your vote gets in. because we are going live on Tuesday morning for the mega preview pod, and that is when we will tally all the votes and we will announce the one and done selections. Then, of course, round by round recaps after each and every round this week. But for now, let me give a big thanks to producer Jacob, does all the hard work behind the scenes. Sia Nejad, available on Twitter at Sia Nejad. Greg DuCharme can be found at The Real GFD, and you can find me at RickRunGood. This has been The First Cut, and we'll catch you next time.